Dude, that's a kick-ass mug.
I got that at Pierogi Fest.
Oh.
It holds a full 2 liters, I think.
Oh,
At
Jesus.
least a liter. I got a full liter of cream soda in here with rum in it.
It's not just signature Jum?
No, I didn't put any gin in my rum today.
Oh. Still have yet to try Jum. I know you keep saying it's fantastic.
I was pretty drunk when I started drinking that, so...
That's kind of what's going to happen when you mix gin with rum. I mean, you're pretty much going for I don't care. That's pretty much what I think the hope is.
That is true.
So are we ready to actually officially start the show now?
Dude, I don't know. Might as well. Sure, why not? I don't know. Flip a coin. Fuck it.
Maybe.
Maybe.
So,
are you ready? Because you keep running in and out.
Craig, are you ready?
I've been ready. I've been recording the entire time waiting for you two.
I've been sitting here.
I still
You still what?
I still blame them.
Me? Sure, why not? Oh, I don't care.
All right, so I'm gonna basically play.
Which one? Huh?
What?
I don't have a third again.
Oh. I am basically going to just plagiarize off your website to introduce you, if you don't mind.
Go for it. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Today we have well, at least I do. I don't know if Dennis did his homework, but I have the pleasure of introducing a very special guest. Been wanting to get her on for a while. I had the pleasure of sitting and listening to a panel at Barnes & Noble, and ever since then I wanted to get her on the show. Today we have ML Brennan, who is the author of is it the Generation V series, or is that...
Yeah, that's actually really funny. They originally decided it was going to be American Vampire. Then I checked Amazon about a month ago, and I was like, oh, I guess it's Generation V series now. Okay, I'm going for that. So I think now it's Generation V.
Because I know that was the title of your first book.
Yeah, I think they really liked the logo that the artist did, and they just kind of kept going with it because I couldn't think of any themed titles. So I think they were just like, all right, just make it work. So yeah, now it's
It is. I went and reviewed. I think it was Iron Knight and Generation V at the same time on Goodreads, but this is the only vampire story that I have read in the past probably 15 years that I've actually liked.
Excellent.
And it's not a typical, like, Jim Butcher has vampires. Does Kevin Hearn have vampires? He's got vampires.
Yeah, Kevin's got vampires.
Vampires. Yeah, and I'm
Think about it. He's one of his main characters, you jackload.
I've read like 80 books in the last couple of months, so give me a break. And Kevin Hearns was not one of them. I read his what was it? Shattered that came out. I read it when it came out, so it's been a while. But vampires are a running theme in the urban fantasy fiction, but your books are about vampires. Like, it's not a theme of your book. Your main character, his family, they're vampires. And normally I don't like vampire fiction. Like, vampire fiction to me always... Whenever I hear vampire fiction, I immediately think Anne Rice.
Oh God, yeah,
And
yeah.
I hate Anne Rice.
Oh yeah.
So-
Same here.
Because Travis is a big Twilight fan. Don't let him fool you.
Just because I watched all the movies does not mean I'm a fan.
There's a sparkly poster there somewhere in that house, I bet.
And that's why you're all into 50 Shades of Grey right now, too.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. It's on today. Sorry about that. You're gonna. Travis opened up a gate this morning. I see. So we got some problems here, Buster.
Whatever,
Yeah,
dude.
vampires are. It was kind of interesting. I think that's both one of my selling points and also the biggest stumbling block I ever have to anyone picking up this series because I say vampires and they're like, oh no, no, oh, don't want to read those. And I'm like, I get that, but I swear it's different.
I'm better than Anne Rice, I swear.
I'm not doing this. I'm not fetishizing them. I swear, they're
And
not that sexy.
That's what I appreciate about your vampires, is they're not like Fortitude, who is your main character. He's a young guy. He's what,
26 in the first book, yeah.
26 in the first book. So he's a typical like college-aged, kind of nerdy dude who happens to also be a vampire. He can't get girlfriends. The girlfriend he has cheats on him.
With the roommate, yeah.
Yeah, he's a fucking mess, and
Yeah.
I liked that. I liked the fact that you don't have, and you're not sparkly. You're not sexy. You're not sparkly. He just happens to also be a vampire, and I like his struggle with that.
Thanks. Yeah, that was really one of the things I really wanted to do was, I was tired of vampires as the next person, and I was just, I wanted to do something that was different, but I was like, okay, so my main character is a vampire. Well, I've got to make him, I like the character, but I definitely went to make him be like the most shat upon loser I could come up with, because I was like, I'm so sick of, vampires being like all pristine and perfect and coiffed hair and all that, and so, I've got a guy who is just getting the shit end of life on so many levels. And, he gets mugged in the first, couple, chapters of the book. His girlfriend is just flagrantly cheating on him. His roommate won't pay rent, and he's got the most worthless degree I could possibly give him. Besides art history, just because I didn't want to do that research. I gave him, he's got a film theory degree. It's an Ivy League, but it's like great. So he's got all the shit jobs that I got to have upon graduation, where it's like, oh great, I've got a useless degree, fabulous. So I wanted to really kind of deal with, kind of some of those post-college issues, but at the same time, I also wanted to I wanted him to be a guy who things weren't easy for him, because I thought that was also going to make him a more interesting person. And then, of course, I gave him, all the things that I like. So he's a Trekkie. He likes Star Wars. He likes Dune. He likes, Firefly. He likes, basically all the things I wanted to be able to make jokes about, I gave him.
Good, because there aren't enough Dune jokes out there as far as I'm concerned.
I feel like there's a dearth, and I do my best to add as many sandworm jokes as I think that the book can take.
Speaking of sandworms, completely not related at all to you or the conversation, has anybody else watched the Battle of Five Armies?
No, not yet.
Oh, the Hobbit movie? Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just,
Do you
the humans
remember
got so
any-
dicked over in that movie. I just couldn't get over that.
Yeah, well, they did, like, basically just shit all over the men, like, of the Lake City.
Yeah, it's just
well,
excuse us, we're
men,
going to get
but-
your city firebombed, and then we're going to stiff you. And
Yeah.
then we're going to get you all slaughtered by orcs. Don't mind us.
Well, and it's, have you read the book, The Hobbit? I'm going to just assume that you have.
Unfortunately, no. I just never could,
No?
I like the concepts, but I just, was never at the right age able to read Tolkien. I read Eddings and I read a bunch of other things, but just, so really my experience with Tolkien is the movies.
Oh.
Which Max Gladstone has assured me there are less fart jokes in the books, so I've got to trust Max on that.
There are less fart jokes, and Dennis, you've read The Hobbit. Do you remember wereworms?
I was drinking when I heard that.
No, there's wereworms? I didn't even know that was a thing. Okay, maybe weregoats I could see.
No, there were no anything. I watched Battle of the Five Armies. I was highly disappointed by the whole series, because I'm
though. He was one that led one of the armies. The guy who changed into a bear. He was a
well, yeah,
he's
like a shapeshifter. He's not a werebear. He's a shapeshifter. They don't
No,
call him a werebear.
Right. I'm just saying, but he didn't really shift any other shapes but bear.
Yeah.
He
So I
seems
just
set
put
to
him as an egg.
bear. Yeah.
So,
But he did seem to need a
wherever.
moon or any other of that stuff that they sometimes do when it's a werewolf. So I guess he is just kind of a shape-shifty guy.
Yeah, he was one of ancient race that is not talked about at all,
Ever
except for
again.
yeah, he's mentioned in one chapter of The Hobbit, and him and his race are never talked about again throughout the entire universe of Middle
Like
Earth.
Tom
Because
Bombadil.
those guys would be awfully helpful when you get to the trilogy. I mean, it's just like, wow, where is all this shit? When you look at the trilogy, it's just like, wait, weren't mountains fighting each other? Were
Yeah.
there other shit? You know,
Well, that's why you got to get one of these.
What, a headphone? Got him.
okay, now we're going to appendices.
Oh, he's got, yeah, you've just stumbled on it, like, yeah, this could be a while.
That's why you got to get one of these. You got to get the complete Tolkien companion, and that will explain all of the things that are interlinked.
Well, wouldn't the Silmarillion
Taking
have
your word
everything?
on it.
Wouldn't what?
The Silmarillion, doesn't that have everything you need to know about the whole universe?
No, the Silmarillion is very confusing to anybody who hasn't... Like, if you just sat down to read the Silmarillion, you wouldn't think, oh, this is Middle-earth, because it has nothing to do with Middle-earth. The Silmarillion is about the gods and goddesses that created Middle-earth.
Oof.
But, yeah, there was wereworms in Battle of Five Armies, not to spoil
Well,
it
don't
for
forget
you.
there were also
Anything like
war
that.
goats. And, you know, war goats were pretty solid, along with the war pig. You know, something
Good song.
came out of this, at least. It was good.
The war pig that the
The dwarf
CGI...
did.
the CGI Billy Connolly. Like, they didn't even have Billy Connolly come in and act it. They just did CGI. I was like, what is this? Like, everyone else is an actual actor. Richard Armitage is Thorin. He's actually being filmed, and they do forced perception to make it look smaller. Yeah, forced perspective. That's what it is. But Dane Ironfoot is played by or voiced by Billy Connolly, and when he arrives, he's riding a giant pig in armor, which is awesome. I will agree.
Cool. That was pretty cool.
I wish I had a war pig. But then they show a close-up of his face, and it's CGI.
Oh, I didn't even realize that at the time.
Yeah,
I was distracted
Billy
by other
Connolly is not on the screen. It's CGI. I was like, why would you do that?
It just seems unnecessary. I mean, I like Billy Connolly as much as the next person, but I mean, if you can't get him, I don't need a CGI Billy Connolly.
Yeah, what'd he do? Phone it in? Like, literally?
Literally, just Skype it, Billy. We'll cut it in. We're gonna put you on a war pig. No, but yeah, I had problems with the third movie, mostly where it kind of picks up, because I still don't see why in God's name that the second movie doesn't end with, you know, Bard being a badass and killing Smaug. You know, why does that the first 15 minutes of the third movie instead of the last 15 minutes of the second movie? Then we would have actually had an ending to movie 2. Yeah, we still have a fucking army running around. People would show up for 3.
I think I can't speak for Peter Jackson, but I think what he was going for is the element of suspense. And
yeah, but if
he's about 70 years old. I mean,
no one will know we killed the dragon.
Yeah,
except we gave that away in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, well, gave it away in Lord of the Rings. Gave it away through like the first 2 movies. There's plenty of foreshadowing.
The dragon will die.
Been in the book. Yeah, and it's been in the book for, like Dennis said, 70 years.
It's pretty. No one will ever find out that way. No one.
They won't read the books.
Whatever.
No one reads.
I think he would. I think just in my own personal opinion, I think he was going for the element of suspense to leave it on a cliffhanger, even though it's really easy to find out what happens next.
Yeah, conceptually, I see what he was doing. It's a cool kind of cliffhanger. It's an interesting, end. But if you've got enough going on in movie 3, I just didn't see the need to cut it just because it's just like, oh, boom, and then Dragon dead, and then it doesn't tie into 3 as much.
This is also the same director who brought characters from the greater universe who were already dead by the time that the Tale of the Hobbit happened, and made them the main antagonists. So,
There we go. I knew this was going to end up happening. Hey, Travis, what do you feel about beards?
Dwarves have beards. They don't have mustaches. They don't have chin straps, and very well manicured facial hair. They have beards. Great.
I will speak up for Jackson in that I was appreciative to have 3 sexy dwarfs in that cluster of many people I didn't give a shit about.
Thorin,
it was nice to have 3 people who were good to look at.
Thorin, Feely, and Keely.
Pretty much, yeah. The eye candy. The unusually well-groomed eye candy.
Yeah, they were some of my biggest gripes, because Thorin Oakenshield is the king of the dwarves. He is king under the mountain, and he has a chin strap beard. What do you got going on there, Craig?
Nice.
That's the best character in all of Lord of the Rings, Jackie Chan.
Wasn't that the Battle of 5 Pandas or something like that?
Oh, Jesus.
It was the Battle of the 5 Jackie Chans. Get it right.
Oh, sorry. Then where did the pandas come in? I forgot about the pandas.
Well, there are war pandas. Of course, they would ride war pandas.
That was from when, I don't remember what happened at that point. That was a long time ago.
Rang Dirtfoot.
Yeah.
That's an inside joke that we continuously talk about on the show that nobody who might listen knows anything about.
They should hang out with us more often. They won't have that problem then.
There was a series of text messages that Craig sent to me specifically, seeing if he could bother me, get me all riled up about Tolkien. And we've mentioned it.
There he is.
There's your 5 pandas right there.
That's pretty great.
But anyway, so back to Miss Brennan. How do you want to be?
Brennan's fine.
Addressed.
ML's good. ML's easiest.
And that actually leads me to this question.
Ooh, we actually segued.
ML, is that a pen name?
That is a pen name, yeah.
And if you can, what does it stand for?
I sold the book under the name Molly Brennan. And then basically when I had already sold it, and my editor asked, listen, you've got a male protagonist. We're trying to kind of separate you a little bit from the paranormal romance and that sort of thing. Would you have problems with gender neutralizing? And my kind of approach on that was, listen, this is the person who knows the business. I'm not going to tell her business. If she says gender neutralizing is going to sell more copies, I'm going to gender neutralize. So I did. I think ultimately just interacting with a lot of people, I think she was right. I think a lot of people picked up the book who might not have if it was under Molly Brennan. Kind of hilariously, this has led to a whole separate issue where a lot of people seem to think that I am an alter ego of Marie Brennan, who writes completely different fantasy books. And actually, when I was in BossCon, someone came up to my autographing session with a couple books by Marie, and I had to tell her, no, sorry, not that person.
I totally would have signed him anyways. I would have signed him. Like,
Yeah,
sure,
I would have signed him into it too.
If I knew Marie better, I would just start signing her books with and just putting a lot of profanity in it or something like that. But the only person's books I sign are Stephen Blackmore's. And he's allowed to sign mine, too.
I'll remember that, because I hope to see him in about a month or so, a couple months.
Yes, absolutely. You should go up to him with my books and get him to sign them.
That's actually not a bad idea. I got some of his books, but I'll have to get a couple of yours so I can go ahead, sign them. See what he says.
Oh, Stephen would.
Yeah.
It would go south pretty fast.
I thought we had her on the show. She said, "Suck it." That's what she said. I'm sorry, dude.
Now, you actually answered my follow-up question of whether or not that was the ML was in an effort to gender neutralize, because we did have Liesl Schwartz on the show a while back, and she was talking about her editor and publisher, I believe. I'd have to go back and listen to make sure it was both of them, but I think it was both of them were asked her, would you mind gender neutralizing?
Mm-hmm.
And she said no. So if I can't sell the book like this, she's a fairly staunch feminist as well. So
oh yeah, I completely understand the mentality. Absolutely, and good for her, without a doubt. You know, I didn't get the impression that if I'd said no, the deal would have been off.
Yeah.
You know, it was just something they said that, listen, given what you're writing, given the, your protagonist, this is our best suggestion. And I can't say that they're wrong. I don't particularly like the situation, but here's a good anecdote of it. So I went to New York City Comic Con, I don't know, so this must have been 2012. And, no, 2013. And my publisher had this great thing where they had me, Mike Cole, and Benedict Jacka, and we're all lined up, at a desk at this, at this table, and they had 100 copies of our first books, and they were just giving them out. So, like, anyone who got in line got the first book from Mike Cole, the first book from Benedict, and the first book from me. And we were sitting there signing them. I mean, it was pretty fun. And so what started happening was, about 20 to 15 people in, I started realizing that, okay, so these guys would have this pile of 3 books. They'd go up to Benedict. They'd go up to Mike first, because Mike was first in line. They'd go, Mike, can you sign this to, like, let's call them, Judd Dudebro. Can you sign this to Judd? And they go, oh yeah, absolutely, signs this to Judd. Then they go up to Benedict, and Benedict and I have pretty similar books. I think, maybe mine might be slightly gorier, but they're kind of in the same, ballpark. They go up to Benedict and like, oh, thanks, so good to meet you. Can you sign this to, Judd? Oh yeah, absolutely. Then they come up to me and they just look at me, and they're like, can you sign this to my aunt? Can you sign this to, like, my girlfriend, or I think my mom reads lady books. Sign it to my mom.
Lady books, that's horrible.
And I mean, it happened to the extent that Benedict, who's sitting next to me, and I mean, it was a crazy, period of time. 100 people went by. Benedict kind of leans over and he goes, I'm kind of noticing something. I was like, really, Benedict? What you noticing? And he's like, I noticed all the guys don't really want to read your book. And it's like, I'm noticing that too. It's just like, but it was just really fun.
And that,
yeah.
Sorry to cut you off. That's something that I don't understand. Like, I don't have a ton of female authors in my collection. I've talked about this a couple times before. It's not a conscious thing. It's not that I don't like reading female authors. Karen Travis wrote some of the Halo series books, and they are fantastic books. Who else do I have? I think I have Liesl Schwartz. Liesl Schwartz, I'll give you a good example. Liesl Schwartz is somebody that if I hadn't picked up her book based on the fact that I had interest in talking to her, and that's why I picked it up. When I first started Twitter, I was looking at people to get on the show. Liesl always talked about very interesting things on her Twitter, so I was like, you know what? I'm going to grab her book, and I'm going to invite her on the show. It's not anything like I enjoy right now. It's not a typical book for me. It's a steampunk, and pseudo romance. Like
Mhm.
it's a steampunk romance book, basically. Not something that that's not really my wheelhouse. But
Mhm.
then when I read it, I thought it was amazing, and I
So,
was glad that I had picked it up. So what I don't understand is when guys, especially, when it comes to buying books and reading books, why is it that you can't enjoy a book written by a woman or even a girl, depending on when they get published,
mhm.
no matter who the protagonist is? Why can't you buy that book and read it and enjoy it? Why does the author's gender have anything to do with it? Just because it's a female writing it doesn't mean your books are perfect case in point. Doesn't mean that it's going to be from a female perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Or even that it's just, I wrote a book that I thought both genders would enjoy. I mean, I wasn't, overly worried about, how I was writing it. I just, I liked the character. I wrote it saying, I think people will like it. I think it's a weird, kind of phenomena. Certainly there are plenty of, readers who just, pick up whatever looks interesting to them, don't even really worry about who's on the byline. But I think it kind of works on a little bit of a more subconscious level that I think there are, admittedly, there are some, but there are a few who would say, oh, well, I wouldn't read a book by a female author. I think there are very few who actually, have the jackassery to say something like that. But I think that kind of subconsciously they kind of, kind of veer away. And because so much is subjective when it comes to picking up a book. It's, okay, how am I responding to this cover? What do I think is inside? It's so many things, when you think about all the books that are in front of you. A lot of times you don't even notice patterns until you really start, like, looking at the last 100 books you picked up or something like that, and then you can actually start seeing a pattern. But yeah, it's definitely something that's coming up a lot in conversation, and I thought it was something really interesting. I forget who had posted this. There was an author of young adult, I think it was young adult or middle grade fiction, had gone and she was doing events at schools. And when she was doing these school events, she was going to these schools and like they would only bring the girls in to listen to her presentation. Whereas when a male author was in, the whole school would listen to the presentation. And I think it kind of comes down to how early we kind of present this idea that, hey, female authors are for girls, male authors are for everyone. It's not it's no great coincidence either that J.K. Rowling gender neutralized. So it's just it's one of those kind of it's
I'm not a fan of hers, by the way.
You're not the
Craig
only
and
one who's being talked to either, Travis.
Craig and Dennis both. Craig likes her. Dennis has no opinion either way, from what I understand. But I personally don't like J.K. Rowling.
If I want
But
wizards,
it's not because she's a wizard.
I got better wizards to read, dude. I mean, there's better ones out there. So much better than like a dude with a scar on his face. You give me like, Belgareth the Sorcerer is probably one of the best ones. And Raceland.
But here's the thing, Dennis. That one, I have no idea who the hell that is.
Belgareth the Sorcerer, he's
Oh, wait, I don't care either.
Yeah, well, there you go. So that's important.
Speaking of Dennis, I'm glad you reminded me because I was a little sidetracked.
What a shot.
Yesterday, the universe got a little smaller and a little less funny.
Oh, because
Terry Pratchett
yeah.
is dead. Terry Pratchett died. There is no detail, and ML, I'm actually leading into something for you by doing this. There's no detail. I've been asked a couple times because I talked about it on Twitter and I talked about it on my Facebook, and my friends there asked me, well, how did it happen? So I don't know. I wasn't there. There's no details whether or not it was assisted or whether or not it was natural. He was sick. He was dying. But he was also a proponent of assisted dying to choose when and how you die, dying with dignity. It's a huge, for me, it's a huge loss. Like I was very depressed yesterday, and
More so than normal. That's what you're saying. That's pretty.
yeah, even more so than normal. I was more morose than my usual.
Moroseness.
Yeah. When these things happen, like as an author, when such a personality passes, or when you're writing your books, it's a very wide and pointless question, really. Like, does any of that come into play when you're writing, when you're creating? Does, like, these other personalities and or the idea that one day you might reach like that point where you pass, and then a good population weeps because of it? Like, do you ever think about the largeness of your art in any way? I think she's gone. Did we lose her?
I can't tell. That or she got sick of us, one or the other.
Yeah. Either way, either she lost connection or she just said, "Oh wait."
Yeah, she dropped off.
Yeah, she dropped.
And she's back.
There she is.
What do you think?
Maybe.
Maybe, possibly.
Perhaps.
Nope. Possibly. We'll see.
Wait, better?
There we go.
There you go.
Sorry, a cat stepped on a mute button. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. No, I actually was hearing, I did hear the question, and I think to a certain extent every writer really does have those kind of, power moments where it's just like, oh yeah, I'm going to be all that. I'm going to be the writer of this generation.
Hey, Travis, that's your own familiar.
We all have our delusions of grandeur. I certainly was also extremely sad that Terry Pratchett had passed away. I think it is something that certainly bleeds through into your writing. I mean, Pratchett was, he was a huge influence on the way that I write humor. I mean, what I think is funny, in a large way, was influenced by by Pratchett and the Discworld books, by reading Good Omens. I mean, it really did affect me. I can trace some of my jokes. I can be like, yeah, I can trace that right back in terms of what I find funny, or even themes or concepts I deal with. And it can bleed through when you're thinking about kind of the circumstances of how someone passes, or even the way it influences you. It does bleed in, and you always kind of think about it, and sometimes you go back and make use of it at times. Certainly, book 4, I'm dealing with a pretty big death in my series, so yeah, you always kind of are thinking about it and thinking about how things affect different people. So, yeah, it was very sad though.
Oh, book 4.
Yes.
I did want to get to book 4. How
I have self-plugged our way to it.
I want to know everything you can share about book 4 without giving too much away. You just said that there is a pretty significant death.
Oh, yeah.
I can help her out. Yeah, it's a book. It's made from paper. It has words in it. It's probably a couple hundred pages. There's the covers on the front and back, and the binding on the end. See, there. See, there you go, Travis. I helped her out.
That's a very, very good description of the book there, Dennis. Thank you.
Yes. Dennis has covered it beautifully.
Yes. And there is punctuation, too. Don't forget that.
Lots of punctuation. There are semicolons, even.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm fancy. let's see, what can I give away? This is a book that I was really excited that I got to write. I wasn't sure I was gonna be able to write a book 4. They had only bought the first 3, and so I was really, really excited when they asked me for a book 4, because this is the one where I blow things up. Yeah, this is the one where a lot of things that I've laid in, I really finally get to pull the trigger on. So, to a certain extent, I'm also doing something that my agent was absolutely terrified about. Where she did not exactly want me to go in this direction. She was like, why can't you just, she wanted me to be a lot more formulaic and just kind of, write, have, everyone just kind of, she wanted it to be very will they, won't they, with Fort and Sue. She wanted it to be very kind of, formulaic and nothing really changing in terms of the world, in terms of the outlines. And I was like, no, I'm going to blow shit up. No, I want this to go completely Palace Revolution style.
Are you writing in that particular mode because there might only be 4 books, or are you planning for it to become more and more expansive?
What? The plan has always been for me for 6. It would suck a little bit if there was no book 5, just because people. I don't cliffhanger any of the books in a real way, but a lot of big shit is planned for 5 and 6. But at the same time, if I never got anything past 4, I would at least be really proud and happy, just because readers would know that I had gone there and that I had made fundamental changes to the world, to system of governments, to kind of a lot of the things that kind of held everything in balance. The checks are gone in this book, and suddenly, things start getting very messy very fast. And that's what I was really kind of excited about. And one of the nice things about books is that actors don't get older. I can always I've got my notes. I can always come back if I get a contract later this year for 5 and 6. I can go back and write it. If that contract came 5 years from now, I could go back and write it. I mean, I can always be ready to come back and do it. Just kind of the fun thing, but there are things happening in book 4 that I was just really excited. A lot of things that I just really built up, like Fort's transition, Madeline's decline. I get to pull the trigger on all of it. So that's why I was really excited to write this one.
Well, I'll be sure to start a campaign towards Rock Books to give you the expansion to both 5 and 6, because it is one of those series, Dennis. That's why I told you should pick it up. It's one of those series where you have the writing style that I particularly enjoy. You have the style that
thank you.
Brings you in. It's like watching a movie instead of reading a book. There's no serious effort in trying to follow the plot lines. Your characters are well formed. Your world is well formed, and in fact, in my first review, I compared you to Stephen Blackmore with.
Yeah, I liked that review particularly. Yeah.
Stephen Blackmore has L.A., and L.A. is like a character in his books. You have Providence, which I'm already kind of partial to anyway because I'm a huge H.P. Lovecraft fan. But Providence, in and of itself, feels like a character in your books. Like the city itself is a character in your books, and that always fascinates me when writers use the surrounding area, not just it's not just character driven, but the world they live in is also a very influential part of the story. What made you choose Providence? Was it?
It was actually, this is actually a true story. It was down between Providence and Pittsburgh. Those were my choice. That's where I was choosing. A part of it was I didn't want to be I was trying to deliberately sidestep conventions that I'd seen. So I didn't want it in New York. I didn't want it in places I'd seen done before. I do think Steven has done an amazing job with LA. I think he does LA Noir amazingly. But I wanted it to be kind of somewhere I hadn't seen personally. And I wanted to really work with that setting, in a way that I did want it to be an important thing, that it wasn't just random place, it was this place. So that kind of narrowed it down to places I had lived, that had certain amounts of, I wanted to have space to move. The nice thing about Rhode Island is that it's located easy driving distance of a lot of places, a lot of different states. It gave me the ocean. It gave me state parks. It gave me, forests. It gave me a lot of locations that I knew were going to be useful. Thing I like is I can move between Providence, which is a nice, city, and I can also move between that and Newport, which is this really interesting coastal town that I actually spent a year living in. That was ultimately what decided me, because Pittsburgh, I was like, I can do a lot of rivers and bridges, but things get flat really fast. Literally, there's not much other than you start going west. Then you get the Amish.
And that's Pittsburgh. I don't know if I've ever read a story that's been set in Pittsburgh.
I will have to do that now.
There you go, Travis. The story you want to write. There you go, Pittsburgh.
No, because that story is based on my life, and I never lived in Pittsburgh.
I lived there in college. It would be like the pierogi stalks at night. That would be my story.
That's something you mentioned. Pierogi. Craig has the mug he got from Pierogi Fest. I've noticed on the East Coast, because I moved from just outside of Chicago on the Indiana side, where both Craig and Dennis are, to New Jersey.
Yeah.
And I've noticed on the East Coast, pierogies aren't as big.
No.
So wait, so you didn't have you had no punchkis this year then?
I haven't had any Polish food since I moved here. Well, no, I have had pierogies. There is one place that Gabrielle's dad goes to that he gets good homemade pierogies at, but there's no. It's not big out here. I kind of miss it.
Significantly less, yeah. Pittsburgh was really kind of where I encountered the pierogi for pretty much the first time. But I like those little things that kind of really set you in a place, and it's not just, okay, here's random place that I looked up. It's, the place. So, with Providence, I've got Moxie Soda references. I get him mugged by Bruins fans. I have, things that are going on that I've had, emails from people being like, yes, that is my place. That is Rhode Island. It's just, I like those things that are, of the place, that are the setting.
Set in the one place I never want to go. Isn't that depressing? But it's all for personal reasons. That's not your fault.
Dennis can never go to Necronomicon because he does not ever want to go to Rhode Island. So
I'll probably end up being arrested if I go out to Rhode Island. So that'll work out.
Necronomicon, because I never read any of those books or cared.
Craig, you're in a very dour mood this episode. What's up, buddy?
I don't read books. I don't know.
Well, okay. Since we'll bring Craig in. Craig, did you get any punchkis this year?
Nope.
Oh, what? Dude, am I the only guy?
You can call them anything but jelly donuts, if that's what they are, first off.
Just jelly donuts.
Jelly donuts?
They're Polish jelly donuts. That's all I'll call them. And it's spelled with
Yeah, but the Polish don't pronounce the letters that are there. I don't know why. It's not my fault.
But no, I didn't get any this year.
Oh, man. There's a really good bakery just across state line in Illinois that's still making them right now. So I've been fucking every time I go to work, I end up buying a dozen. I cannot figure out how I haven't gained any weight yet. So.
Oh, is it a seasonal thing?
It's usually they're only made right around Fat Tuesday usually.
Oh, I gotcha.
So and they're usually they're filled with. They're not quite a jelly donut because they're not made quite the same way, Craig.
They're filled with jelly.
Well, no, because it's not just jelly, dude. You can get I mean, I technically wouldn't. Prunes seems to be the big one, and I don't know why prunes. That's just ugh. But you can get like
they're trying to regulate.
Good for you. It's like why I drink cranberry juice every day.
Well, that sounds like a personal problem. That's no, but it's just I just man, I've been fucking down on them. I love punchkis. It's like one of my favorite things. And pierogies. I used to love going to pierogi day too until like everyone got fucking wind of it, and now it's just douchebag central.
Really, hipsters eat pierogies?
Oh fuck yeah!
Really?
This fucking hipster who was standing behind me in line at one of the fucking pierogi booths. These pants had to be. You had to pick them up at a women's shop.
Yeah.
He had those big fucking gaudy hoop earring things. Not like pirate style, but the kind that deform your ears when you put them in.
Yeah, the giant plugs.
And then a pompadour that looked like it was pasted on the top of his head.
Oh, pompadours are a good hipster sighting.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a solid one.
I will pile my hair occasionally. I am not a hipster. I enjoy the pompadour because I'm a hillbilly and I like Johnny Cash.
You're reclaiming the pompadour from the hipsters?
Well, I'm just saying, not all people with pompadours are hipsters, although...
Though
yeah,
men... It's on my
99%.
sighting chart. You know, if I was going to make the guide to hipsters, like a bird chart, the pompadour would be presented in silhouette.
That is true.
It's unfortunately true.
Fucking handlebar mustaches, all that shit. All the stuff that I was like enjoyed doing that I could pull off, I can't do anymore because then all of a sudden I look like a hipster and it's really pissing me off.
I was, I grew up in Colorado. I grew up listening to country music, Hank Williams, Johnny Cash.
Mm-hmm.
I had an affinity for the pile, aka the pompadour, for as long as I can remember. And then I grew up in my teen years, got into punk rock, found rockabilly, found metal, had a pompadour for many years because I have a odd-shaped skull from the many accidents.
Hey, Travis, I thought...
Oh, nice. That's a good one.
That's not a pompadour. I don't even know what the fuck that is. That's kind of frightening, actually.
I've seen that. I've seen that in person.
And see, and this goes back to a conversation we've had with many of our guests about elitism. It's people like that make it very hard for me to not be an elitist prick, because I'm good at being elite. I'm good at it. And then I see people like that, and I have to be an asshole. I have to mock them. And then I feel bad for it, because then I end up getting stuck in that mode, and I mock people who don't deserve to be mocked at. That's a guy who loves his fedora.
Yeah. But sometimes you love a fedora too much, though.
I'm sure there's a fetish site for it somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure there is.
Oh, there has to be.
Well,
I wonder if there's a fedora-specific fetish, though.
I wouldn't doubt it. Well,
You should start one.
You can make money, Travis. Go for it, man.
I'm far too square for that, and I think the wife might have. She might express some concerns about that.
Just tell her it's a moneymaker. Don't worry about it. We'll be fine.
Yeah.
Don't worry about where I'm getting my money, honey. It's pay the bills. Don't worry about it.
That's about right.
Yeah.
Well,
Actually, one of the things I miss about Pittsburgh, first of all, because there were a lot of mullets in Pittsburgh, and worn unironically too. If you go, when I would go to Pirates games, which that was really fun because you could get like decent tickets just walking up the day of the game. You know, you didn't have to buy them in advance or anything, which is, you know, I suppose a bit of a commentary on the pirates, but what can you do? They have this thing called the mullet cam. And, you know, at some point in the game, the camera would go around and, you know what? God bless them. They always found a mullet.
Pittsburgh, well, a lot of PA. I live relatively close to Pennsylvania, in New Jersey, but which wins me no points, I know. All of Pennsylvania kind of strikes me as being mullet country, more so than Indiana, and I thought Indiana was mullet country.
There are stronger portions of stronger holdouts of the mullet, like mid Pennsylvania. Oh, God help you! You know, there's just, you know, it's just nothing but one giant mullet. But, you know, on the coast, you go Philly. You know, Pittsburgh's actually a pretty fun city. I enjoyed living in that city. I was there, undergraduate and graduate degrees. I spent in Pittsburgh, and that is a fun city to live in. It's a city that you got a lot of people, you got a lot of things going on, but you know what? You can walk home at 3 a.m. from a bar and not get mugged, and, you know, blessed for that. But yeah, it has its mullet holdouts. We've got a lot of West Virginia influence in Pittsburgh.
Now, speaking of graduate and undergraduate, you also work as an adjunct professor.
Oh, yes.
Does your fiction career ever run into your other professional career? And does that ever, like, stir up any? Because I know there was a story a couple months back of a guy who got shit canned because he wrote a very violent fiction about a school shooting. I know there were other details that were released later, but does your fictional career under your pen name ever meddle with your everyday life?
In this way, the use of the pseudonym does benefit me, just because, for one thing, I can just post screeds about my daily work life. I mean, I can post student emails and just take the names off. I can complain vociferously about my work life, and, you know, because my actual identity and my pen name are not linked in any way, and none of my coworkers know what I write, I can get away with it. So it's a nice little outlet there. I do keep them separate for a couple reasons. The first and foremost, just because I do also write literary fiction. I would someday like to actually have full-time, you know, employment with those, you know, wonderful perks like, you know, healthcare, you know, the sweet perks, you know, employment that I would know was solid for longer than 3 months. I mean, you know, I live the dream, and so, you know, I just don't have it associated as much. I mean, if there was a possibility of getting a job, believe me, I would break my cover so damn fast. People's heads would spin. But I do write under my own name some literary fiction. I write, you know, genre fiction under my pseudonym. It's a lot of fun, and the fortunate thing is then I don't have to deal with the consequences quite as much. Just because I don't have to worry about, you know, hey, will my boss read this? What will my boss think of it? You know, will my boss read my Twitter where I'm just, you know, shrieking curses, you know, nonstop?
Which was where I was going to ask, because you are very vocal on Twitter. Have you yet had a student that was familiar with your work, or that could have placed you from, like, if I were to go to where you were located and get into the college that you worked at, I would recognize you because I've met you before?
That is true. Yes, you would. But then I would kill you.
You would also be like Travis.
Well, no, I'm saying if that series of events were to, because I don't know what college you work at, if that series of events were to transpire, and I just happened to become a student at the college that you worked at, and having met you before in person, have you had a student that came up and said, hey, I was at Comic-Con and I saw you there. Have you had anything like that happen yet?
I am always kind of waiting to see if it'll happen because I mean I do cons in my local area. I mean I'm going to be doing Vericon, next week, which is just up in Boston. I did a bunch of Boston cons this year. I've done Connecticut. I mean I've been in my area. Um, I think I just haven't gotten that student yet. I mean, if the student happened, I think, certainly there are plenty of people who know both identities and, don't run around on Twitter saying, I know the real name. I mean, it's not that hard to figure out. Um, but I'm not honestly that worried about if it did happen. I mean, I've thought a couple times about even doing just like a signing, in my local area, just because at the end of the day, I think a lot of people just don't, just don't care. I'm not that big. Is
Yeah.
what it comes down to. I'm just not that big. I wouldn't be that worried if it had come out. I'm sure one of these days it will.
And I don't think the subject matter. You write about a 20-something vampire who just has a shit life for most of it, can't get a girlfriend, can't keep a job. Your subject matter isn't exactly questionable. So
No, and I mean, it is funny kind of the amount that, a lot of it's subjective. I mean, I've had people saying, oh, this is basically young adult, and I've had other people being like, giant warning, pedophiles are in this book, which they are, but in my own defense, I do set them on fire at the end. So it's not like I'm endorsing it.
I actually enjoyed that. I almost audibly cheered.
She doesn't endorse, I like how she doesn't endorse the pedophilia, but setting them on fire completely endorses. That's where we're standing.
I do
Setting people
endorse
on
that
fire
officially.
Setting bad people on fire is an endorsement, even from me. I say setting people on fire is a great idea.
Yeah,
So.
that was a pretty fun. I think that was the first time. That was one of the first time my editor was like, "Are we sure about this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely. The 8-year-old should set him on fire. You have a problem with that?"
Yeah, is there any question as to what should happen to this guy? Like, it is absolutely... When you first introduced that character, that was in book 2, right?
Sleazy Pedophile was book 1. Yeah.
Was that book 1?
Yeah, Sleazy Pedophile.
Yeah,
He doesn't
yeah.
make multiple books. I burn him. That guy died.
He died in the second book, though, right? Because
Sleazy Pedophile died, end of book 1. Oh, you're thinking of my cannibalistic incest elves. Those are book 2.
Oh, yeah. See, I got mixed up. Yeah, so Sleazy Pedophile guy getting just absolutely... Because I remember now that you mention it, that's the first... sorry, spoiler alert, but if you haven't read it yet, it's been out for a while. Go read it. It's not my fault.
Spoiler alert, I killed a bad person.
Yeah. And that's the first time that Fortitude experiences, like, full blast his vampire powers.
Oh, yeah, I loved that. That was a lot of fun.
And just the setup, you made that guy out from your introduction to be an absolute piece of shit. And if you hadn't killed him, I probably would have stopped reading your books, because everything that you set him up to be was just an absolute piece of shit.
Oh, yeah, there's nothing redeeming about that particular guy. I have more nuanced villains later, but no, that first book I was like, you know what, I'm just going to make him every kind of asshole. He's going to be snobby, he's going to be elitist, he's going to be a pedophile, he's going to be Eurotrash. I threw everything at him.
And then I completely appreciated and, like I said, almost audibly cheered
Awesome.
when reading the end of his story, because you set him up that way. And I think this is something I always try to get out of every author that we get. Like, is there a formula to when you're writing? Is it a stream of consciousness, or is it this happens, and then this happens? But it felt like you gave Fortitude no other choice during the book. That guy had to die, and he had to be brutalized when he died, and that was an amazing way that you killed him.
Well, this wasn't a guy who, I'm not a big fan of just, clean soldiers' deaths for characters. I mean, I want there to be a lot of blood. I like there to be a lot of damage. And I like there to be a lot of damage to my hero, too, at times. And it did have to be a big moment for Fortitude. But because he'd been, he is, a little bit moralistic in a lot of ways, pretty idealistic, he really needed to want to, absolutely take this guy apart and kill him. And it was one of those funny things, too, that when I was talking with my, going through the first round of edits, it was important to me that Fortitude as a character was stepping in to save someone who he didn't have, like, a personal connection with. And that actually was kind of a stumbling point for a lot of editors. They were like, couldn't this, he'd be saving his little sister or, like, his neighbor's kids or like this? And I was like, no, he's saving a little girl from a pedophile. I think that's motivation enough, personally. But, what do I know?
Well, do you have kids?
Not yet.
As I'll tell you, as a parent myself, that is all the motivation.
That
like
was
I didn't second question. I didn't question it at all. Like, here's a complete stranger. Fortitude happens to figure out that she disappears. There was no question in my mind as to what that chain of events should lead to. And there's a lot more to it, but that's, if only that happened in the real world all the time, I think the world would be a much better place.
Yeah. I think it was a little bit down to kind of what my philosophy was toward the books, too. I get kind of tired about, like, books or series or, like, TV or whatever, where it's just like, okay, here's the thing. If we don't do anything, it's the end of the world. Like, the world is going to explode. And to me, it's kind of like, well, okay, I guess you got to do something because, like they say in Guardians of the Galaxy, you live in the universe. This isn't exactly a choice. Saving the world. I mean, it's not like you'd have somewhere else to go. I wanted this to be something where if he didn't take an action, it wouldn't be the end of the world, but it would be kind of morally a problem. So I wanted this to be something where he really just choose to do something, and he kind of chooses to go out of his way and, be a big damn hero. Just come out.
And that's actually, like, that I can't imagine it in any other way. I'm
awesome.
I'm trying to I told you we were really bad at traditional interviews. I try not to, because pretty much everyone we've interviewed thus far has been somebody that I'm at least slightly a fanboy of. So I'm learning to not fanboy gush so much.
No. I'm enjoying this. This is a big ego boost for me. Keep going.
Don't encourage him.
Yeah. gonna make it worse.
I'm being supportive.
Ask Stephen Blackmore what it's like to have me fanboy gush.
You should have me and Steven on at the same time. We would have a lot of fun.
That actually might be a really good idea for the next episode. I have one person set in April and nobody else yet. I know Mike Cole is going to give us a second chance because I completely bungled his first interview that was meant to talk about his new book, and then we didn't mention his new book once.
Poor Mike. Mike's a nice guy, though. He'll roll with that.
I don't know. I thought it was a good show. Anyways, we had a lot of fun talking to him, just because we didn't quite get into what was going to be happening, but we got to get to know the guy a little bit. I mean, I think that's important. Got to know the person. Yeah. They're just not a book. It's not about what they do. There's persons behind it, Travis. You got to know the person.
It was a great episode, and I enjoyed that episode a lot. I enjoyed talking to Mike a lot, and he showed an immense amount of patients for my foot and mouthitis. But I did, like, the whole setup was to talk about Gemini Cell's new book. That's the whole reason that I kind of forced myself upon him. I was like, I do a podcast. We talk to most of the authors. You should come on. We should talk about your new book. And then we don't talk about his new book at all. So I kind of...
So now we're going to talk about it? I mean, we seem to be going off tilt here, not talking about her books. Now we're talking about his books. Are we just...
No, that's cool. We can talk about Mike's books now. That'd be funny.
I actually... There, because of, and it all ties together, because Stephen Blackmore... You can go fuck yourself, Dennis. Stephen Blackmore, you, Mike Cole. I'm looking at my books right now. Well, we do video, so I don't have to explain it.
Yes, I can see that. Keep going.
I'm not used to the video cast yet, Dennis. Shut up.
Oh my god! Just get with it.
You were all people that I found. Dennis introduced me to Kevin Hearn, and through Kevin Hearn, I discovered Stephen Blackmore. Through a review that he did, I discovered Stephen Blackmore. I had to read Stephen Blackmore based on that review. I picked up Mike Cole, Wesley Chu, you, and Peter V. Brett from making that connection on Twitter, because there's a group of you. There's a circle of authors that I don't know if you're aware that you're a circle of authors yet, but there is a circle of authors. Kevin, you, Stephen Blackmore, Sam Sykes, Peter V. Brett, Mike Cole.
Mm-hmm.
And through finding you all on Twitter, I found your books as well, because I'd read one book, I'd follow that person on Twitter. From there, I would be introduced to the next person. I'd go buy their books, so on and so forth.
So you got this stalker thing going on, then, is what you're talking about. It's like a really weird stalker type thing.
No, it's a really weird version of Discovery.
Well, that is fun, because we always have these conversations about, does a Twitter actually, get people to read the book, and now I can, when I have this conversation, I can be like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, go look at Travis.
Well, at least I literally know of one guy, so you at least say that. There's one dude doing it. I don't know about everybody else.
I have one confirmed case. This is a thing now.
Yeah. It's empirical evidence. Anyway, so there.
That's kind of what I'm getting at, is because I've asked this question before. You all make yourselves very open to your fans, and in fact, I asked this at the panel that you did with Mike Cole, Anton Strout, and Mark Smiley. Is you make yourselves very available to your fans, and you make no exceptions. If so far that I've found, when somebody asks you something, I can't see what everybody is asking or when people are talking to you. But from what I found through the Twitter streams,
that's a different social network.
I'm 4 in, so I'm losing my ability to pronunciate a little bit. You've made yourselves accessible, is the point I guess I'm making. And does that affect how you write your books, knowing that you are making yourself that accessible and people are going to question or maybe demand something from you? Or do you just kind of compartmentalize and say, well, this part of being an author is this part, and the writing is its own being?
It is hard to keep them from bleeding through. I mean, I really like Twitter, because I get to have a lot of fun and talk with a lot of people, and, for example, I'll tweet at Steven a lot just because the two of us have the most idiotic like Twitter threads possible. I mean, we will go on tangents like nobody's fucking business. But I do that because, I get along with them in the same way that, I'll tweet at someone. If someone tweets at me a question, I'm going to answer because I'm like, oh my God, someone read the book. Jesus, got to write this on the calendar. It's still pretty exciting to me. But it is, I like the format of Twitter a lot just because it encourages those kind of conversations where you can kind of play around a lot with the language and that sort of thing, and you get to know a sense of how people think and respond. I mean, sometimes, I picked up Lish McBride's book because she and I got along so well on Twitter, which is, so you do kind of, you can encounter things like that. Similarly, there are plenty of people who I, tweeted on Twitter and, really look forward to talking with who, they might not be authors, they might not have a particular blog that I'm trying to fluff up or whatever. It's a fun format is basically what I like. In terms of it bleeding through, in terms of the questioning on, how people can respond, yeah, that's always there. It can be important to set it aside at times. Just because you don't want to take over the creative process. Because I mean, oh my God, I think we've all seen like those shows or books or something like that. I'll go with a show where it was just like, there are plenty of times where there's a popular character or a popular villain or anything like that. I'm thinking about Heroes here. Where Heroes had a great first season. The second season sucked for many, many reasons, but one of those was they didn't have the balls to just kill Sylar, which is what they needed to do. It's the whole first season. That was the point. Kill him. Well, he got too popular, or they liked the actor. Who knows? But they didn't kill him. And so for me, I've got to be, to an extent, I certainly pick up on what people like, what people are responding to, but I also have to be kind of willing to go where I think the story needs to go rather than what's popular or what, people would like. I mean, I know that it would piss a whole lot of people off if I kill certain characters, but if I thought that that was necessary, I really do think I need to be willing to do that, or be willing to kind of not do something just because I know everyone would like it. So, it just puts you closer and it gives you more awareness on what people will think. Certainly to an extent, I will say this. When I include a gross out moment or like a particularly appalling thing, and I've got a good one coming in book 4, I literally do just really kind of sit at Twitter going, oh, God, I want people to read that. Oh, I can't wait to see what their reaction is. Really want people to get grossed out on that one. I mean, so it's kind of got pluses and minuses, I guess.
That's that to me is what's one of the more fascinating things, because even the more vocal members of the circle of authors that I'm talking about, like Chuck Wendig.
Oh yeah, Chuck's great.
And John Scalzi, like even they don't always, though they're the most vocal, so they're the extreme. For me, they're the extreme examples of when an author takes something that means something, or something that somebody has said to them, and makes it an example of something. There's not many of that circle of authors who do that. They're just the two most extreme vocal members of that circle. And to the point where sometimes I've actually had to not follow people for a while because it just got to, like, for me it was like, I'm not involved in this, so I don't want to hear about it, so I'm just not going to follow for a while. But I always come back because it's I can't help myself. I enjoy I enjoy the writing, and I enjoy the personalities, and that's some of the most fascinating. The most fascinating thing for me, actually, is after reading a person's work, a person's art, something that they put a decent portion of their life into, to watch them interact and to realize that their art is not anywhere necessarily near the reactions of the people who are experiencing their art. And that amazes me because I'm the type of person, Dennis alluded to it earlier. There's our 2-minute warning.
Yeah, my name's Tom, and I don't give a fuck.
There's our warning towards the end. But to finish the point, Dennis alluded to it earlier. I had the delusion of grandeur, and I thought we were going to be the podcast of this generation. Like, we were going to be the voice, and people were going to love us, and we were going to become internet sensations overnight, only to have it turn around with, nobody gives a fuck what we got to say. So,
I remember this distinctly. I looked at him and I said, "You are aiming way too goddamn high." I said, "You set the bar really, really low. Really low. I mean, like, you could trip over it low. And then if you get over it, you're like, ooh, look at that." That's why Hank. That's why we love Hank.
Yeah, and I learned that lesson, and that's why it fascinates me so much with the authors that I follow on Twitter, because their art is so far removed, but yet so close to their fans. Like, it's so far removed because everyone we've talked to so far has been like, well, yeah, it kind of interplays, but at the same time, if I want to do something really fucked up that my fans are not going to like, I'm probably going to do it anyway, just because that's what the story needs. So it's an interesting lesson for me, next to the lesson of the reality of things. Reality is a lesson in and of itself. To, hey, this is the art that we do. Like, this podcast is our quote-unquote art.
Really? This is art? Dude, I'm not even going to come out. This is horrible. I am not an artist then.
Dennis, we...
Wow, that is such a downer to end on. This is not art.
It isn't art only because we have perfected the idea of what we do. Like, what we do is a science now. So, I don't know what it is we do, but we have it down.
It's an artistic outlet, without a doubt. You are doing something. Yeah, it does have reflections on fiction. I mean, certainly. Everyone dreams that their first book is going to be like, boom, straight to the top of the fucking list. You'll have all the money. It'll be great. That didn't happen for me. It did not. But at the same time, you have to say, well, you know what? Fuck it. I can always write more books. That one didn't, I'm just going to keep working at this thing. Maybe the fame will come. That'd be nice. Maybe the money would come. That'd be awfully sweet. But, I'm just going to keep, working my ass off on this. And you know what? I'm just going to keep getting better and working. And maybe the audience will come then, but just because it hasn't yet doesn't mean it's not gonna. So, what can you do?
Hank and everybody else who listens to this episode, I hope this is just as big as an episode as we've been enjoying lately. Tweet at Rock Books. You can find them on Twitter at Ace Rock Books. Tweet at ML. Go buy her books. Pre-order the 4th book if it's up yet. Go buy the first 3, Generation V, Iron Knight, and Tainted Blood, which, yes, it will make you think of that Soft Cell song.
Ironically, dude, I honestly, in my head, started hearing the song. I don't know.
It is the best title ever because it does that. Someone did a spoof.
You'll have to email me or Twitter me the link of the spoof if it exists online.
I will find it because they just did lyrics, but it was awesome.
Because we'll link that in our show notes.
No, definitely send it to you.
But go tell Ace Rock Books to give ML the contract for books 5 and 6, since she's already got the one for 4. Go pick up her first 3 books. I'm telling you now, they are great books to read. ML, thank you so much for coming on the show, and if it comes down to time to release book 4, if you want to come back on, or anytime you want to spend an hour and 15 minutes just talking about absolute nonsense, you are more than welcome back.
Hey, I had such a great time. Thank you so much for taking the time to have me on. And yeah, absolutely. Anytime you want to have me back, I'm more than happy to. Yeah. Sorry, this was a little boring for Dennis and Craig.
No, I've been sitting here trying to figure out how we convince you, how we get Stephen Blackmore back on, and we just like. ML
Oh yeah, do that.
Just
Do
flying out
that.
of nowhere and be like, "Yeah, I'm here. What's up?"
Yeah, I'll have to
Drop
figure
in
out
like
a way.
WWE wrestler slapping the elbow in and just kind of, here I am. Let's check it out. With a full luchador mask and everything. That's kind of what
I'll
I
have to figure out a way to set up a show with Stephen Blackmore and you, where neither one of you know that it's going to be the two of you on the show, and then just let that show do whatever that show's going to do. We'll mute all of our microphones if we have to.
If Twitter is any indication, it would go in such really weird directions. That'd be fun.
I think that's what our show needs.
A city full of elitist assholes
Oh, this is great.
that won't do anything about it. And one man who couldn't take it anymore. One man sick and tired of their condescending glances. That one man? Charles Bronson. And it's about time he started killing hipsters. Sure, he wears a mustache, but he does so unironically. Turn it down, hipster. No one wants to hear your playlist. Cleaning up the street. One unnecessary headband at a time. Hey man, is your coat a vintage coat? No, it's a right now coat. Killing hipsters. Killing hipsters because nobody else would. That, and they also raped his wife a bunch of times. Bang. You're seen as dead. Killing hipsters. Rated PG. An action-packed smorgasbord of revenge. And when you least expect it, Jeff Goldblum.
Bye, Hank.